The metal door slammed shut behind Maya Torres with the sound of finality. She stood in the small preparation chamber, her hands steady despite everything that had led to this moment. The walls around her were made of some alien metal that seemed to drink in the light, leaving her in a dim glow that came from strips along the ceiling. She could hear them out there, thousands of voices creating a sound like ocean waves. But these waves carried excitement for blood. Maya pressed her back against the cold wall and closed her eyes for just a moment. 3 days ago, she had been Lieutenant Maya Torres of Earth's Special Forces, leading a routine diplomatic escort mission to the Outer Rim colonies. Now she was about to fight for her life in an alien arena, and not just her life, but the lives of her entire crew. The mission had gone wrong so fast. Captain Jake Morrison had been negotiating with the Zephyrian trade delegation when the shooting started. Pirates, they said later, but Maya knew better. The whole thing had been a setup from the beginning. The Zephyrians wanted human prisoners, and they got exactly what they wanted. 23 crew members now sat in prison cells somewhere in this massive complex, waiting to see if their weapons specialist could do the impossible. Maya had volunteered without hesitation when the Zephyrian commander made his offer. Win 5 matches in their grand arena and everyone goes free. Lose even 1 and they all die. It was not really a choice at all. She opened her eyes and looked at her hands. They were smaller than most hands in this galaxy. She knew that now. The Zephyrians had made sure to point that out during her processing. Weak human hands, they called them. Soft pink skin that would tear easily. Bones that would break like twigs. They had laughed when she signed the combat agreement. Maya flexed her fingers and smiled slightly. Let them laugh. She had spent 12 years in Special Forces, and before that, 6 years learning every martial art she could find. Her instructors had always told her the same thing. Size means nothing if you know how to use what you have. The sound from the arena grew louder. She could make out individual voices now, speaking in languages she did not recognize. Some sounded like grinding metal, others like wind through caves. All of them carried the same message. Excitement for the show about to begin. A section of the wall slid away, and a figure entered her chamber. The creature stood nearly 2 meters tall, with gray skin that looked like it had been carved from stone. 4 arms hung at its sides, each ending in hands that could probably crush her skull without effort. This was her escort, she realized. One of the arena staff. Time, the creature said in heavily accented standard. You fight now. Its voice sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. Maya nodded and walked toward the opening. The corridor beyond was wide enough for 3 of the 4-armed creatures to walk side by side. The walls were covered in what looked like battle scenes carved into the stone. She recognized some of the species from the diplomatic briefings she had studied. Krellians with their natural armor. Vorthons moving so fast they appeared as blurs. Thessians with their serpentine flexibility. As they walked, Maya asked, "What happens to my crew if I die in the first match?" The escort did not slow down. "They die 1 hour after you die, Zephyrian law. And if I win all 5 matches, then they go free, and you go free. Also Zephyrian law." The creature paused. But no human has ever won even 1 match in 300 years of arena combat. Maya absorbed this information. 300 years. How many humans had tried and failed? How many crews had died because their representative could not overcome alien strength and speed? She pushed the thoughts away. Doubt was a luxury she could not afford. The corridor opened into a vast staging area. Maya could see other fighters, preparing for their matches. Most of them were easily twice her size. Some had natural weapons like claws or spikes. Others carried energy weapons that hummed with barely contained power. All of them looked at her with what she could only describe as amusement. The human, one of them said in standard. It was a Krellian, she realized, though bigger than any she had seen in the briefing materials. "I am Vextalk. I will be your first opponent." Maya looked up at the massive warrior. His 4 arms were each as thick as her torso. Natural armor. Plates covered his chest and shoulders. His face was dominated by ridges of bone that would probably stop most projectile weapons. He was exactly the kind of opponent designed to crush human resistance in the first few minutes of combat. "Nice to meet you," Maya said, She meant it. Better to know your opponent than to guess. Vextalk laughed, a sound like boulders colliding. You are polite for dead meat. I will make your death quick, human. Your bones will break cleanly. I appreciate that, Maya replied. She was studying him as he spoke, noting how his weight shifted, how his forearms moved independently, where his eyes focused when he gestured. Every detail might matter in a few minutes. The announcement system crackled to life, filling the staging area with a voice like silk over steel. Fighters to positions. The crowd grows hungry for blood. Maya Torres took a deep breath and walked toward the arena entrance. Behind her, she could hear Vextalk's heavy footsteps. Above her, the sound of thousands of alien voices grew to a roar. Somewhere in this complex, Captain Morrison and 22 other humans were counting on her to do something no human had ever done. She stepped into the light of the arena, and the crowd exploded with laughter and cheers. They had come to see the weak human fall. Maya looked around at the massive coliseum, at the thousands of beings who had paid to watch her die, and smiled. Let the show begin. The arena floor was covered in sand that crunched under Maya's boots. The grains were larger than earth sand, and they had a reddish color that reminded her of dried blood. She wondered how much of that color came from actual blood spilled over the years. The thought did not disturb her as much as it should have. Above her, the crowd's noise was like standing inside a hurricane. Thousands of aliens filled the curved seats that rose up and up until they disappeared into shadows. She could see species she had never encountered before, creatures with too many eyes or arms that bent in wrong directions. All of them were here for the same reason, to watch her die. The announcer's voice cut through the noise like a blade through cloth. Maya looked up to see a serpentine figure coiled around a platform high above the arena floor. The creature's scales caught the light and threw it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Citizens of the galaxy, the announcer called, her voice somehow reaching every corner of the massive space. Today we witness another human attempt what none of her kind has ever achieved. Lieutenant Maya Torres of the primitive world called Earth will face our champions in ritual combat. The crowd's laughter rolled down from the seats like a physical force. Maya heard comments in dozens of languages, but she understood enough. Standard to get the general meaning. Weak, soft, fragile, doomed. The betting screens around the arena showed odds so heavily against her that most bookmakers were not even taking wagers on her survival past the first match. Her opponent, the announcer continued, needs no introduction. Vextalk the Bone Crusher, winner of 47 consecutive matches, champion of the Krellian war clans. Vextalk emerged from the opposite entrance and the crowd's noise shifted from laughter to genuine excitement. The Krellian warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall in the arena's center. His forearms moved independently as he tested the weight of his weapons. 2 energy maces hummed with power that made the air around them shimmer. His natural armor caught the arena lights and reflected them back like polished metal. Maya walked to her position 20 meters away. The weapons rack beside her entrance held standard arena equipment, energy blades, projectile weapons, and defensive gear. She selected a simple combat knife and a small shield generator. The crowd found this hilarious. Look at the little human, someone shouted in standard. She brings a knife to a plasma fight. Maya ignored the comments and focused on Vextalk. The Krellian was showing off for the crowd, spinning his weapons in complex patterns that demonstrated his forearmed coordination. Each mace weighed more than Maya's entire body, but he handled them like they were made of air. The combat zone was a circle 50 meters across, marked by a low-energy barrier that would prevent either fighter from leaving until one was defeated or dead. Around the edge were obstacles, metal pillars, concrete barriers, and pits filled with sand. Maya studied the terrain carefully. Against an opponent like Vextalk, the environment would be her only advantage. Fighters ready, the announcer called. The crowd fell silent for the first time since Maya had entered the arena. This was the moment they had all paid to see. Maya dropped into a combat stance, knife held low, shield generator on her left arm. Vextalk raised all 4 weapons above his head and roared. The sound echoed off the arena walls like thunder. Begin. Vextalk charged immediately, covering the distance between them in seconds. His 4 maces came down in a pattern designed to crush anything in their path. Maya dove to the side, rolling behind the nearest concrete barrier, just as superheated plasma scorched the sand where she had been standing. The crowd cheered as Vextalk's weapons tore chunks out of the concrete. Maya stayed low, using the barrier for cover while she analyzed his attack patterns. The Krellian was incredibly strong and faster than something his size should be, but his 4-armed style had limitations. Each arm operated independently, which meant he had to coordinate 4 separate attacks. That coordination took time, even if it was only fractions of a second. Maya waited until Vextalk rounded the barrier, then surprised him by attacking instead of retreating. She went low, slashing at his knee joint with her combat knife. The blade skittered off his natural armor without doing significant damage, but it accomplished what she needed. It forced him to step back and reset his stance. The human draws. First blood, the announcer said, though Maya had not actually wounded her opponent. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some laughed at the futile attack, but others seemed surprised that the human had gone on offense at all. Vextalk snarled and brought 2 maces down simultaneously. Maya activated her shield generator, and the energy field absorbed most of the impact, but the force still sent her sliding backward across the sand. She rolled with the momentum and came up behind another barrier. "You only delay the inevitable, human," Vextalk called out. "Stand and fight with honor." Maya smiled grimly. Honor was not going to save her crew. She needed to survive this match, which meant fighting smart instead of fighting fair. She studied Vextalk's movements as he advanced on her position. The Krellian was confident, maybe overconfident. He had won 47 matches by overwhelming his opponents with superior strength and weapons. He expected this fight to follow the same pattern. Maya had other plans. She waited until Vextalk was close enough, then threw sand at his face. The Krellian stumbled backward, temporarily blinded. Maya used the distraction to circle around him. Staying low and fast, she slashed at the back of his knee, this time finding a gap in his armor. Her blade bit deep, and dark blue blood spattered the arena sand. Vextalk roared in pain and anger. The crowd's cheers turned to surprised murmurs. No human had ever wounded a Krellian champion before. Maya kept moving, using her smaller size and agility to stay out of reach of those devastating maces. She was not trying to win yet. She was learning. How fast could Vextalk turn? How did his 4 arms coordinate when he was angry instead of calm? What happened to his balance when one leg was injured? The answers to these questions would determine whether her crew lived or died. Vextalk's injured leg slowed him down, but it also made him more dangerous. Pain had replaced his calm confidence with raw fury. His 4 maces moved in wild arcs, smashing concrete barriers to pieces and turning sand into glass where the plasma touched it. Maya stayed ahead of the destruction, but barely. The crowd was no longer laughing. The betting screens around the arena showed odds shifting as spectators realized this fight might last longer than expected. Some aliens in the expensive seats were leaning forward, studying the small human who had managed to wound a Krellian champion. Maya ducked behind a metal pillar as 2 maces struck it simultaneously. The impact rang through the arena like a bell, and she felt the vibration in her bones. Chunks of metal flew past her head. She was running out of cover, and Vextalk knew it. "Nowhere left to hide, human," the Krellian called out. Blue blood dripped from his wounded knee, staining the sand beneath him. "Face me properly, and I will make your death swift." Maya peered around the damaged pillar. Vextalk stood in the center of the arena, all 4 weapons ready. His stance favored his good leg, exactly as she had hoped. She had been studying him for 15 minutes now, learning how he moved, how he thought, how he fought. The time for running was over. She stepped out from behind the pillar, combat knife in her right hand, shield generator on her left arm. The crowd fell silent. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The weak human finally cornered, about to be crushed like all the others before her. Vextalk charged with a roar that shook dust from the arena walls. All 4 maces came down, In a coordinated strike designed to flatten anything in their path, Maya waited until the last possible second, then did something no other opponent had ever done in 47 matches. She stepped forward instead of backward. The movement put her inside Vextok's reach, too close for his long weapons to be effective. His maces passed over her head as she drove her combat knife upward, finding the gap between his chest armor plates. The blade sank deep into muscle and vital organs. But Maya was not done. As Vextok stumbled backward in shock, she grabbed one of his fallen maces with both hands. The weapon was almost too heavy for her to lift, but adrenaline gave her the strength she needed. She swung it in a wide arc, striking Vextok's injured knee with devastating force. The Krellian warrior crashed to the sand like a falling mountain, his remaining maces scattered across the arena floor. He tried to rise, but his damaged leg could not support his massive weight. Dark blue blood pooled beneath him, soaking into the red sand. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of aliens stared in disbelief at the scene before them. The humans stood over the fallen champion, breathing hard but victorious. It was impossible. It had never happened before in 3 centuries of arena combat. Maya looked down at Vextok. The Krellian's eyes were still alert, still angry, but also confused. He had never been defeated before. He did not understand how a creature half his size with primitive weapons had brought him down. How? He whispered in Standard. Maya knelt beside him, checking his wounds. The knife wound was serious but not fatal if treated quickly. The damage to his knee would heal with proper medical care. She had won without killing him exactly as she had planned. You expected me to fight like a Krellian, Maya said quietly, so only he could hear. But I am human. We fight differently. She stood and looked up at the announcer's platform. The serpentine creature was coiled in shock, her scales flickering with colors Maya had not seen before. The announcer seemed unable to speak. Maya raised her voice so it would carry to every seat in the arena. The match is over. Vextok needs medical attention. The crowd finally found its voice, but the sound was different now. Instead of bloodthirsty cheers, Maya heard nervous chittering, worried growls, and hushed conversations in dozens of languages. The word human was repeated over and over, but now it carried a different meaning. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Maya stepped back as they worked on Vextok, using alien technology to stop his bleeding and stabilize his injuries. The Krellian looked at her one more time before they carried him away. You fought with honor, human, he said. I was wrong about your kind. Maya nodded respectfully. You fought well, too. Your strength is impressive. As the medical teams left the arena, Maya remained alone on the sand. The crowd was still talking, still trying to understand what they had witnessed. She looked up at the prison viewing section where she knew Captain Morrison and her crew were watching. She could not see them from this distance, but she hoped they understood her message. 1 match down, 4 to go. The announcer finally recovered her voice. The winner of the first match by combat superiority, Lieutenant Maya Torres of Earth. The announcement was met with scattered applause, but mostly silence. The entertainment they had expected was turning into something else entirely. They had come to see a human die. Instead, they were seeing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about humans. Maya walked toward the exit tunnel, her legs shaky from exhaustion and adrenaline. Behind her, maintenance crews were already working to repair the damage to the arena. The sand where Vextok had fallen was dark with his blood, but Maya's blood was nowhere to be seen. In the tunnel, alien reporters tried to interview her, shouting questions in multiple languages. Maya ignored them and kept walking. She had more important things to think about. Tomorrow would bring a new opponent, probably faster and more dangerous than Vextok. The arena masters would have learned from this match. They would not underestimate her again. That was fine. Maya Torres had not shown them everything yet. Not even close. Maya sat in her preparation chamber between matches, but this time she was not alone. 3 alien reporters had somehow gained access, along with a Zephyrian military observer, who studied her like she was a dangerous weapon. The questions came, fast and urgent. How did you know where to strike the Krellian? Asked an insectoid creature whose translator made its voice sound like grinding gears. What training does Earth provide its warriors? Demanded the military observer. Maya ignored most of the questions. She was thinking about her next opponent, Zekri the Swift, a Vorthon speed fighter who had won 31 matches without taking a single hit. The briefing materials described Vorthons as living blurs, capable of moving faster than most species could track. Zekri could cross the entire arena in under 2 seconds. Lieutenant Torres, the military observer pressed, My government needs to understand human combat capabilities. Are all Earth soldiers trained like you? Maya looked at him directly. Every human learns to hunt prey that is bigger, stronger, and faster than we are. We had to, or we would have died out long ago. The words were simple, but they made the room fall silent. Maya could see the observers processing this information, trying to understand what it meant for their own species' security. News of her victory over Vextalk had spread beyond the arena. Maya could see it in the way the guards looked at her now, with wariness instead of amusement. The betting screens showed her odds improving, though she was still heavily favored to lose. More importantly, she noticed alien warriors scheduled for later matches asking to review recordings of her fight. The door opened and her escort arrived. This time it was a different creature, one she had not seen before. It walked on 6 legs and had optical sensors instead of eyes. When it spoke, the voice came from a speaker mounted on its back. Time for match 2. The crowd is eager to see if the human victory was luck or skill. Maya stood and walked toward the arena. In the corridor, she passed other fighters preparing for their own matches. They watched her differently now. Before, she had been a curiosity, a weak creature they barely noticed. Now she was something they studied, trying to understand how she had accomplished the impossible. The arena floor had been repaired since her first match. Fresh sand covered the bloodstains and the damaged barriers had been replaced. But the crowd was different. The seats were fuller than before, packed with species that had not bothered to attend the first match. Word had spread that something unusual was happening. Maya selected her weapons, 2 curved blades designed for speed rather than power, and a lightweight mesh armor that would not slow her down. Against a Vorthon, heavy equipment would be useless. She needed to match speed with intelligence. Zekri appeared from the opposite entrance, and Maya understood immediately why he was called the Swift. The Vorthon was built like a human sprinter, but everything about his physiology was designed for speed. His legs were longer in proportion to his body, his muscle structure was different, and his nervous system was clearly adapted for rapid response. Another human, Zekri said, his voice carrying easily across the arena despite his distance. I watched your match with the Krellian. Impressive, but Vextalk was slow and predictable. I am neither. Maya nodded respectfully. I look forward to learning from you. The comment seemed to surprise Zekri. Most opponents either boasted or threatened. Few spoke of learning. The announcer's voice filled the arena. Citizens, witness the second match of Lieutenant Maya Torres against Zekri the Swift, undefeated in 31 encounters. The crowd's noise was different this time, still excited but with an undertone of uncertainty. They had expected the UE, human, to die quickly in the first match. Now they were not sure what to expect. Fighters ready. Maya dropped into a defensive stance, both blades held low. Zekri crouched like a runner at the starting line. Begin. Zekri vanished. Maya had read about Vorthon speed, but seeing it was completely different. One moment he was 20 meters away. The next he was behind her, striking at her back with a weapon that hummed through the air. Maya threw herself forward, rolling across the sand as Zekri's blade passed through the space where she had been standing. She came up with both weapons ready, but he was already moving again. The Vorthon appeared to her left, then her right, then directly in front of her, each position held for less than a second. The crowd was on its feet, cheering as Zekri demonstrated why he had never been touched in combat. His speed was beyond anything Maya had ever faced. He could attack from any angle, retreat before retaliation was possible, and strike again from a completely different direction. Maya took 3 shallow cuts across her arms and legs as she tried to track his movements. The crowd cheered each hit. This was what they had expected from the first match, the human being overwhelmed by superior alien abilities. But Maya was not trying to match Zekri's speed. She was studying it. Vorthons moved fast, but they still followed the laws of physics. Every movement required momentum, and momentum could be predicted. More importantly, she was starting to understand the cost of such speed. Zekri's breathing was becoming labored. Sweat glistened on his skin despite the arena's cool temperature. His attacks were still lightning fast, but they were becoming more predictable as exhaustion set in. Maya reached into her equipment pouch and pulled out 3 small spheres. Smoke grenades, standard arena equipment that most fighters ignored. She activated all 3 simultaneously and threw them in different directions. Thick, gray smoke began filling the arena. The crowd booed, unable to see the action clearly. Zekri's speed meant nothing if he could not see his target. Maya closed her eyes and listened. Vorthon feet on sand made a distinctive sound, different from human footsteps. She tracked Zekri's movement by sound alone, a skill she had learned during night combat training. When he attacked through the smoke, Maya was ready. She stepped aside at exactly the right moment and struck with both blades simultaneously. Zekri's own momentum carried him into the weapons, and his speed became his weakness. The Vorthon crashed to the sand, both of Maya's blades embedded in his chest armor. The armor had absorbed most of the impact, saving his life, but he was down and unable to continue. The smoke cleared to reveal Maya standing over another defeated champion. The arena fell silent once again. 5 days had passed since Maya's first victory. The arena complex had changed completely. Military observers from 12 different species now filled the premium viewing sections. News feeds across the galaxy carried updates about the human, who had won 4 consecutive matches. Scientists studied recordings of her fights, trying to understand how a species they considered primitive had developed such effective combat techniques. Maya stood in her preparation chamber before the final match. Her body carried the marks of 4 battles, cuts that had healed into thin scars, bruises that had faded to yellow, and muscles that ached from constant combat. But her mind was sharper than ever. Each opponent had taught her something new about alien physiology and psychology. Captain Morrison and her crew had been moved to a viewing chamber where they could watch the final match directly. The Zephyrian commander wanted them to see their fate decided in person. Maya had caught a glimpse of them through the reinforced window. Morrison looked older than when she had last seen him, worry etched deep in his face. The other crew members pressed against the glass, hoping to give her strength through their presence. The door opened and Commander Throcknar entered her chamber. Maya had expected an escort, not her final opponent coming to visit personally. The cyborg warrior filled the doorway, his mechanical enhancements gleaming under the chamber's harsh lights. Half his face was metal, and his left arm had been completely replaced with a weapon system that could fire energy bolts or function as a plasma blade. "I wanted to see you before our match," Throcknar said. His voice came through speakers built into his throat, giving it an electronic edge. "You have impressed many people, human. You have also frightened them." Maya studied him carefully. Throcknar was the arena's champion for good reason. His cybernetic enhancements gave him strength, beyond any natural creature, speed that rivaled the Vorthons, and weapons integrated into his body. More dangerous than his physical capabilities was his intelligence. He had won 200 matches not through brute force, but through tactical superiority. "Why did you come here?" Maya asked. "To offer you a choice," Throcknar replied. "Surrender, now, and I will ensure your death is quick and painless. Your crew will die quickly as well. Continue with this match, and I will make all of you suffer for the trouble you have caused." Maya looked at the cyborg warrior for a long moment. "You're afraid?" Throcknar's mechanical eye focused on her with laser precision. "Explain." "You've never visited an opponent before a match. You've never offered them a quick death. You're afraid because you know what I represent." Maya stepped closer, unintimidated by his size. "I'm not just fighting for my crew anymore. I'm showing the galaxy what humans can do when we're pushed into a corner." And what can humans do? Thruknar asked. We adapt. We survive. We win. Maya smiled grimly. Your people have studied my previous matches. You know my techniques now. You've programmed countermeasures into your cybernetic systems. You think you're prepared for everything I might try. I am prepared. No, Maya said quietly. You're prepared for the human you think I am. But humans don't stay the same. We learn. We change. We become whatever we need to become. Thruknar stared at her for several seconds, his optical sensors, scanning her face as if trying to read her thoughts. Finally, he turned and left without another word. An hour later, Maya entered the arena for the 5th and final time. The crowd was the largest she had ever seen. Beings from across the galaxy had traveled to witness this unprecedented event. The betting screen showed odds much closer than before, though Thruknar was still favored to win. But something else had changed. As Maya walked to her position, she heard something she had never expected. Sections of the crowd were cheering for her. Not many, but enough to notice. Somewhere in those thousands of alien voices, beings who had initially wanted to see her die were now hoping she would survive. The weapons rack held everything she had used in previous matches, plus new options she had not seen before. Advanced armor, energy weapons, even small explosives. The arena masters were giving her every possible advantage for this final confrontation. Maya ignored the advanced equipment and selected simple tools. A single combat knife, basic armor, and one special edition. She picked up a small device that looked like a simple radio transmitter. Most spectators would assume it was a communication device. They would be wrong. Thruknar entered from the opposite side, and the crowd fell silent. The champion was an impressive sight. 3 meters tall, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming, his weapon arms cycling through different configurations as he tested his systems. He had come prepared for war. Citizens of the galaxy, the announcer called, witness the final match. Champion Thruknar, undefeated in 200 encounters, faces Lieutenant Maya Torres in combat that will determine the fate of 23 human prisoners. Maya looked up at the viewing chamber where her crew waited. Captain Morrison pressed his hand against the glass and Maya nodded slightly. Whatever happened in the next few minutes, she had already accomplished something important. The galaxy would never again dismiss humans as weak. Fighters ready. Maya crouched low, knife held in a reverse grip, the small device concealed in her other hand. Thruknar's weapon arm transformed into a plasma cannon, its targeting system locking onto her position. Begin! Thruknar fired immediately, a bolt of superheated energy that would have vaporized any normal opponent. But Maya was not where his targeting computer expected her to be. She had already moved, rolling to the side as the plasma scorched the sand behind her. The cyborg adjusted his aim with mechanical precision, firing again and again. Maya stayed ahead of the blast by barely centimeters, using every piece of cover the arena provided. To the crowd, it looked like she was running for her life. She was actually getting into position. Maya activated the device in her hand. It was not a radio transmitter. It was an electromagnetic pulse generator, a small one designed for disabling electronic equipment. She had noticed it among the arena's standard equipment and realized what it meant. The EMP burst was invisible to most of the crowd, but its effects were immediate. Thruknar's cybernetic systems flickered and failed. His weapon arm powered down, his targeting system went dark, and his enhanced reflexes disappeared. For the first time in 200 matches, Thruknar was fighting as he had been born. A skilled warrior, but not a mechanical god. Maya charged while his systems were still rebooting. The cyborg champion tried to meet her attack, but 15 years of relying on mechanical enhancements had made him dependent on their assistance. Without his targeting computer, his aim was imperfect. Without his enhanced speed, he was too slow. Maya's knife found the gap between his armor plates just as his systems came back online. But it was too late. The blade pierced something vital, and Thruknar collapsed to the arena floor. The champion of the galaxy looked up at the small human who had defeated him. "How did you know about the EMP device?" Because humans pay attention to everything, Maya replied. We notice what others miss. We use what others ignore. The arena erupted in chaos. Some sections cheered wildly while others sat in stunned silence. The impossible had happened again. But this time it was different. This time everyone understood that they had witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. Maya Torres had not just won 5 matches. She had proven that humanity was not the weak species the galaxy had believed them to be.